Guys, my name is Lanan, and this will be quiz one review. So, first up, for what I'm going to cover today, I'm going to go over a review of 2D shapes, including rectangle and ellipse, really the only two you need to know. And for colors, get familiar with the RGB systems and a couple functions like background, stroke, and fill. I will also be going through coordinate systems, so how to translate, rotate, and by a certain degrees. And then I'll also walk you through um, some examples. So first up, for basic shapes, we have rectangle and ellipse. For rectangle, the functions to create a rectangle is called is rect, and you're gonna pass in four number. The first twos are the x and y coordinates of where you want the rectangles to be. The third one is width, and the last one is height. And these are all floating point number. And as for rect mode, we have corner, center, and radius. So let me show you how that works. Okay, so right here I have the setup and then a couple functions. It's like I just set up so it's easier for me to demonstrate to you guys. And then I'm gonna call specific functions down here to run that. You don't have to know about functions or how to use that for now. You only need to care about how to create the shapes and colors, and that's pretty much it. So this is setup. So really it's just setting up the canvas and setting the background color. I gonna set up a canvas of set so size 400 by 400 allow me to set up canvas that is 400 by 400 pixel, and then setting the background color to white. That's pretty much it. So once again, to draw a rectangle, we call direct function, passing in this is x and y location and width and height. I'm gonna run that. As you can see, it's give me a rectangle from the 0, 0 location. One thing you need to remember is 0, 0 is the origin point, and in processing, origin point starts at the top left corner of the canvas, and for X, it's counting to the right, and for Y, it's counting downwards. So this is let's just say the top left is 0, 0 be the top left. This is the 400 by 400 canvas. The 400 by 400 point will be the bottom right. Okay, so so that's how you create a rectangle. So as for rectangle mode, we have corner, radius, center, and radius. By default, uh, the rect mode that was always used is corner unless you specify otherwise. So if I put rect corner right here, nothing changes because the default mode is corner, and in rect mode corner, the x and y coordinates that you pass into the rect function top would be the top left, the coordinates for the top left corner of your triangle. So yep. So what if we try rect mode center? So instead of gonna try rect mode center with the same rectangle function. So rect mode center, also um it's different in the sense that this time, oh, 1 second. Uh, oh, I need to comment it's that. Sorry, my bad. But as you can see, it's like because it's now the x and y coordinates that you pass in, the processing does not consider as the top left anymore. It's now that will be the center, like the center point of the rectangle. So it's like drawn. The center will be the origin. That's why you only see like a quarter of the rectangle. So try and draw something else. 200 by 200, 50 by 50. So you can see center 200 by 200 is the middle point of the canvas. And basically what we're talking processing is now setting rect mode to center and draw a rectangle at the middle point of the canvas of a width of 50 and a height of 50. That makes this a square. And as you can see, it gave me a square of size 50 and 50 in the middle of the canvas. So, and next up, rect mode radius is also pretty similar to center, except the last two number would be the width divided by half. that would be half the width and half the height. So if I use rect mode radius and literally call the same, pass the same numbers into the rect function, it will give me the same rectangle, but but double the size, like double the width, double the height, because the last two number is now only half the width and half the height. So really, that's all you know about rectangles. For ellipse, we have also gonna pass in four numbers. The first two are x and y coordinates of where the ellipse is, and the last two are also the width and the height, and we also have ellipse mode. So go ahead and call the render ellipse function. Where is it? Okay, so right here, by default, ellipse mode is center. And as you can see, yeah, these numbers are very random, but it's drawn an ellipse of the size, the width of 220 and the height of 300 at this location, and this coordinate will now be the center of the ellipse. Okay, something else you should remember in processing is constants. So this is an example. We have the constants of width and height right here. So these constants would automatically be, whatever the width and height of your current canvas is. So if I use the constants of width divided by 2 and height divided by 2, I should basically tell processing that to go to the middle, like the middle positions of the canvas of the coordinates of width divided by 2 and height divided by 2, then draw an ellipse of width 100 and height 100. So run that. And that gives me is a circle right in the middle of the canvas. For ellipse modes, as I mentioned, by default, it is center. And so it works by default in the center, which is what we already went through. And we also have radius, which is pretty similar to rectangle, which means the last two numbers will now only be half the size of the the ellipse. So center is default, radius is like center, but its last number is half the width and half the height of the ellipse. So if we set ellipse mode to radius, and let's just say we run this function, it would give me an ellipse also in the middle of the canvas, but now 120 is half the size, so the full width and height would be 240. That's why it looks really big. Okay, and really that's all you know about rectangle and ellipse, except we have colors, and we'll use the RGB systems. RGB stands for red, green, and blue, which you can combine the certain intensity of these different colors to make literally any colors out there. Each the intensity of each color would range anywhere from 0 to 255. And when you want to choose a color, you use the function fill and passing in three float numbers in the order of red, green, and blue. Remember, it has to be in this exact order, red, green, and blue. So let me give you an example. So right here we have render colors. See, where is it? Where is it? All right, so RGB. So for example, if I want full red, I'll set red to the maximum, which is 255, and then green and blue to 0. So that, sorry, so that, and then I draw a rectangle to give me a full red rectangle. And then same goes for blue and green, setting green to highest intensity, the other to 0 gives me, oh, sorry. So it gives me a green square, and same goes for blue. Yep. Okay. As you can see, because the blue square was drawn after the green square, and it's also bigger, which is basically drawn right on top of the green square. And if you want, like, let's just say pink or some really specific colors, but you don't know what the RGB value is, you can also go to Tool up here and then Color Selector. And it gives us this canvas right here that you can kind of like scroll around to find the colors that you want. Let's just say I want to do this kind of pink color. I'll copy these values and I'll copy these I'll copy these three RGB values and putting that to my function. Just example. And then draw a rectangle. As you can see, it drew me a square in the color that I picked. So easy peasy. Okay. All right. So that's pretty much it about color. Go back to the slides. And then coordinate system. So for coordinate system, there are two functions that you need to remember: translate and rotate. For translate, that means moving the origin point. So as I mentioned, the origin point in processing is set at the top left corner of the canvas. And then if you want, so that corner will be at the coordinate 0, 0. And then translate will help us move the 0, 0 point. So let's just say I want the origin point now to be in the middle of the canvas. I will set translate by a certain x and a certain y. So that's the numbers that we're gonna passing into the translate function. So I'm gonna pass in floating number x and floating number y, x and y being how much we want to displace, how much we want to move the origin point. So, and also it's important to remember that coordinate systems, I'm sorry, translate is cumulative. So if you call two different translate function, it doesn't mean that it would like, it will count. It's cumulative. So if you said translate 100, 100, translate 100 by 100, thousands, translate 200, 200 by in total. So that's a little confusing, but let me give you an example. I'm gonna call the random movement function here. Okay, so now I'm gonna draw an ellipse at 0, 0, 100, and 100. It's a circle. But since it's drawn at the 0, 0 point and the 0, 0 point is now at the top left corner, as you can see, we only see like a quarter of the circle. Now I'm going to move the starting location to the center of the screen. So translate by width divided by 2, height divided by 2, brings the origin to the center. Now we draw the same ellipse. As you can see, it's down in the middle of the canvas. And I mentioned earlier that translate is cumulative. So if I translate by 10, 10, that will adds up on top of the translate with divide by 2 and height divide by 2 that we did earlier. So if I translate 10, 10, and I draw another same ellipse, as you can see, the new ellipse is the starting location of the new ellipse is now at 110 and 110. So it's like shifted a little bit down and to the right. So the new circle is also being shifted down to the right. So it's important to remember that translate is cumulative. And if you call 10 different translate the function, it all counts. Okay, so next up we have rotate. So rotate's pretty simple. It just takes in one number is the degree that you want to rotate it by, and this is in radians. And so if you're not familiar with radians, radians basically tell me it's also a degree. It's a unit for for angles. For I'm sorry, degree radians is a unit for angles. So let's just say, so a full circle will be 2 pi radians. And then, so if I want to rotate from here to here, so half a circle, that would be pi radians. And if you don't, you can use the pi constants that is it is already set up in processing to determine how many radians you want to rotate it by. So let me give you an example. I call the rotate function. So translate, let me try to translate. So first I want to translate the origin point by 100 by 100. So it's like at the 100 point of the canvas. And let me draw an ellipse. You can see the ellipse I draw is at the point, it's at the point, okay, so the origin is right here, 100 and 100. I want to draw an ellipse at the point 100, 0. So x coordinates needs to shift another 100 to the right, and that gives us the center of the ellipse. So as you can see, the newer ellipse we have is right here. So let's just say I want to rotate it by 90 degrees. 90 degrees would be pi over 4. I'm sorry, it's pi over 2. Yep. So rotate pi over 2. As you can see, it's like rotate in exactly 90 degrees compared to the the previous example. But let's just say, what if you don't know how many pi radians it is to pass into the rotate function? You can also use radians. So um, so basically, the radians functions allow you to pass in degrees instead of the radian unit. So this is pi by 2, that is 90 degree. So we copy that out and try rotate radians 90. Run that, it works basically the same. All right. So next up, I'm gonna give you an example. So now it's gonna call the render rotate and movement. So this is a function. You don't have to remember this, but it is can be useful. It's reset matrix. So basically, if you call this, it resets all the origin back to the original point, which is the top left corner, and then yeah, it's basically reset all the rotate or all the translated you did earlier. So I'm gonna call reset matrix. Then I'm gonna move the center. Let me comment these out. Yep. So um, I'm gonna move the I'm gonna move the center, the starting point to the center, fill with color red. You draw a point. So you can see the point is drawn right in the middle of the canvas. Okay, so now I'm gonna set rectangle mode to corner instead, and I'm gonna apply simultaneously both translate and rotate. So let's try translate to the middle point of the canvas, fill with this color, draw an ellipse and a rectangle. As you can see, it's the color yellow because I set red and green to force intensity, and red and green makes yellow. So first of I draw an ellipse of from the around the origin, which is now the center point of the canvas of size 60/60, and I draw this rectangle. But what is it? Why is it -5? So let's just use 0. Why don't we use 0? Let me show you why. So remember, right now the origin point, starting point is set in exactly in the middle of the canvas. And if I draw that, as you can see, the rectangle is being slightly shifted to the right. And the reason why is because rectangle mode is now set to corner. So whatever X and Y coordinates you pass in is going to be the top left corner of the rectangle you want to draw. So in that case, since the starting point is on the middle of the canvas, but that's the top left corner of the rectangle. That's why when we draw it out, it looks shifted to the right. So in order to bring it back to the middle as we want it, we need to do a little bit of modification. So since this is a width of 10, the middle point, let's move the top left corner like by 5 unit to the right, 5 pixels to the right. So let's give it -5. Now we draw it, and as you see, it's positions where we want it to be. Okay, so let's say I want to draw a sun of by drawing 5 different rectangles around the circle. I let's just so I know that I want to rotate by the middle point. I want to rotate 5 times each by a certain degree. And every time I rotate, I'll draw another rectangle, another rectangle, another rectangle, another rectangle. So as I mentioned, the full circle is 2 pi. And if I want to rotate 5 times to draw 5 rectangles around the circle, I would need to rotate by 2 pi divided by 5. Okay. So let me call that rotate 2 pi, 2 times pi divided by 5. And I draw another rectangle, another same rectangle. So you can see it rotated by 1/5 of the full circles and draw another rectangle for me. But what if I don't remember, I don't know how to pass it 2 pi divided by 5, but I know that I want to rotate by exactly 72 degrees. Then in that case, I'm going to use rotate radians 72. Again, radians helps you pass in a degree and the angle in degree unit rather than radians. Whichever is easier for you, you don't have to, just stick with one. Okay, and I've commented this out, and as you can see, it works like exactly the same. And because I want to draw 3 more, I'm gonna repeat that process 3 more times. So you can see right here. So rotate by 72 degree, draw a rectangle, rotate by 72 degree, draw another rectangle, 72 degree, another rectangle. So I run that, I have the sun. So yep, that's pretty much everything you need to know for quiz one. Let me know if you have any questions, and good luck on Friday.